Good evening and welcome to the April 21st, 2015 Board of Education meeting. We've been in executive session since 6 o'clock to discuss an individual personnel issue. It does not look like we have any PIG students. We've got some teachers here, but no participation in governance students. They are.
There's another one.
The last class will be full, or the last board meeting will be packed because the students will be making up their lost time, but. So I won't have to say that we'll take a break at 9 o'clock.
It is sunny out, too.
Yeah.
No, it's
No,
good
but
time
it's
management.
Tuesday, I think.
All right, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with introductions.
Lynn Lenhart.
Christine Beck.
Michael Cooper.
Jody Monroe.
Tom Douglas.
Matt Downey.
Charmaine Widgesinger.
Diane Seaver.
Joanne Cunningham.
And Judy Kehoe.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the April 15th, 2015 special board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
That's the first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? That item carries. Student Senate report. Doesn't look like we'll have a report tonight. I know why, it's a Tuesday night.
I think that's it.
That's right. They probably,
We're out of
I always
it's tomorrow.
emphasized that last week, that it was a different night. So hopefully they don't show up tomorrow night.
4 times.
It was communicated around to all the
Yeah.
classes. So.
Okay. Next, the superintendent's report.
Yes, thank you, President Downey, because we've roughly had almost 3 in the past, 3 board meetings. Mine is relatively short, and I'm going to keep it that way. First of all, I'd like to congratulate a couple of our students for being selected for the All-Eastern Band feature here from BCHS. This was for music education, All-Eastern Honors Concert Band. The individuals were Sarah Coffey, who plays French horn, and Madeline Del Cano, who plays tuba. So we'd like to congratulate those students for this honor. In addition, we'd also like to recognize the 5 Bethlehem Central High School students who earned a trip to the semifinals of the Fed Challenge in Manhattan on April 16th. I haven't heard how they've competed at this point, but I know they represent us very well, and that's Ronald Shee, Gabrielle Sanders, Carl Skusek, Miranda Miller, and Ben Weinstein, and Jason Majuzik. These individuals, I think we mentioned before, but after they complete their round of competition, we'll also invite them out to the board at the end of the year, most likely for the budget hearing. So in addition, I know we have an IB visit coming up to Hilton Central School, and we have some board members going as well as staff members. This will be our last visit for this year. If anyone can get to us within the next day or so, just to finalize and confirm, and then we'll be convening the meeting of the subcommittee here at the high school to talk about any questions and start brainstorming any of the initial thoughts, comments, and concerns with that to go into next year. Last but not least, I had the opportunity, along with members of the board, as I'm a board member of the Chamber of Commerce for the town of Bethlehem, to attend the annual dinner awards last Friday night. And I'd like to congratulate Sydney Cycling Sauce here at the high school, who everyone will be seeing an expose on them in the Times-Union, I believe on Thursday, explaining all of their great works for the Tour de Cure and the benefits of diabetes. So what I would like to do is congratulate those students and thank them for all their work. And also, because they only get 1 award, I'd like to recommend that we purchase the additional awards for each student to have their own award for that event. I've already got the contact information, and I'll make that happen. This was the first ever youth award offered by the Town of Bethlehem Chamber of Commerce. And it was an outstanding night, and they received a wonderful standing ovation. And I know that one of those students will be speaking shortly, so I will save that for introduction for that time. So other than that, there's many other activities, the construction projects going on, but we're trying to be at everything we can. I know the board members are, as well as the administrative team, and I want to thank everybody for their efforts as we go into our annual election season, and I just encourage everyone to come out and vote with whatever budget is adopted by the Board of Education this evening. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas. Next is Board of Education report. One thing I didn't mention earlier is starting at 5:30 tonight, actually, the board and administration were treated to a nice dinner put on by the Sydney Sauce kids and everything, and we very much appreciated that. They explained to us how they began this whole process and what they've learned throughout this process, and they'll be selling their sauces at hardware store, right, Ace Phillips Hardware Store, and I believe they're going to try to sell at the farmer's market during the summer, too. So it's a great opportunity for the kids to learn about running a business, and we appreciate all that they've done for that. Anyone else?
On that note, we have 2 high school concerts coming up next week, the 27th and the 29th. That might be an opportunity for them to sell some more sauce, but hey. And then the senior banquet is next Thursday.
Yes.
And I just want to add to the awards, whatever, there was a little article in the paper, so I checked about it, but there were 2 students, one from Bethlehem and another one from Scotia Glenville in the automotive repair class at the Career and Technical School at BOCES, and they came in, their team came in second in the state, and so then they went on to a regional competition, and I forget the exact placement of it, but Alex Wright has earned over $20,000 worth of scholarships as a result of this competition.
Was that in the Skills Challenge USA?
No, it wasn't Skills USA. It was the 2015 Eastern New York Coalition of Automotive Retailers Regional Automotive Technology Competition. Well, that was the original one at Hudson Valley, and then they went on.
But we had 2
In New York
students,
City, at the
right?
Javits Center in New York City. But it was, well, they were a team. The one student was from Scotia Glenville, but Alex Wright was the Bethlehem student, which was.
Well, Mr. Landry, if you can get me all the details so that when we do our recognition, that might be also another.
Did you get the name? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Charmaine.
Speaking of Mr. Landry, he and I were trash talking on the way up from the meeting. The board did receive a letter from a community member about trash on the district property. Mr. Landry assured me he was working on it, but I also, there's no SGA representative here, but perhaps working with the SGA also to kind of instill school spirit in terms of taking care of the property and the kind of imagery portrayed to the larger community is important. I was able to come to the high school career fair today. It was organized by counseling staff Deb Z and Lisa Carr with some interns from SAGE. I told everyone I would read their names. So Caitlin Dobert and Stacy Powdowda and the BC Chamber of Commerce representative Daniel Balzan. So it was a great collaboration. I think there were over 30 booths set up, a whole full range of career options, including the military, law enforcement, plumbers, florists, a chiropractor, so it was great, and there was quite a bit of student participation. And then the last thing was I was able to attend the Lady Eagles Invitational Track Meet this past Saturday. It was an all-day event, quite a number of teams there. I would like to appreciate or acknowledge the athletic department, the coaches and athletes, the Booster Club, and in particular Colony High School for assisting in the relocation of that event. It went off, I believe, without a hitch. And related to that, Dr. Douglas, I have 2 kids who run track, and there's all kinds of rumors swirling out there about what's going on with the track, including, let's see, the contractor won't get paid if it's not done by this date, et cetera. But I did watch the tape of the last meeting, and it's true, there is no deadline on when that project is there. They just need the correct conditions. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I addressed this at the Bethlehem Central Athletic Association. There's always rumors out there, and I appreciate Mr. Minicha having me in to talk about the budget, and that was one of the questions I knew I would not get out of there without answering. But the question of the track relies on 3 basic stable conditions. First, the track must be dry. Not just dry to the touch, but the ground around it has to be dry. In other words, you don't want to seal in moisture. And then on top of it, you have to have heat. And that means temperatures above 50 degrees, which that's starting to take care of itself, finally, from a long winter. But that heat is important because that helps the curing of the aerosol spray process that goes on for the overlayment on the track. And then third, and most importantly, because that aerosol spray is so light and able to fly on neighbors' houses, cars, and buildings and parking lots and permanently affix itself to it, you want very low wind conditions. because they have to take care. And you need all three of them present for at least roughly 3 to 4 days to completely finish the overcoating of the track. And even then, they still have more work to do. They're completing some of that other work now, so that's the reality of it, and until we have those, we cannot risk the warranty of it.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Moving on, we'll have our presentation, the 2015-16 budget discussion.
If I can, just because we skipped over a presentation, because tonight is the high school night, I would ask that we allow the educational scheduling process of BCHS start first with Mr. Landry. He has a very quick presentation just to talk about it, especially with using Aspen this year, and I think he has a student presentation right after it.
And the reason Mr. Landry is here tonight is during the last year when we began our process and planning for the school year, the board had decided that we wanted to have a presentation or visit each of the schools within the building. And we have visited all of the elementary schools, and now tonight is the opportunity for the high school to speak to us, and we will be going to the middle school too for presentation, so.
All right, thank you very much. So I wanted to touch base about what the mystery behind the scheduling process, and also this year why it's different and why I think it's vastly improved over where we were with Aspen. And so just to kind of walk you through the process, it begins with the course catalog. That's online, but we really start to push that in December and January in terms of with the parents and the students so they can start talking about what courses they want to take. Then they work with their parents and with the teachers in regards to the course selection process. And this year, the significant change was that the teacher recommendations were done online on Aspen. They were not done on paper copies. And there was, you know, because that's a change, and whenever there's change, there's some hiccups. And it went remarkably well. And the feedback from the teachers was how much quicker they could do it, but also the time that they had, meaning they could really think about, okay, should this student go into British literature, American literature? Should this student go into general physics, AP physics, Regents level physics? That they had the chance to really kind of map it out. The students could see it, and then that would promote more conversation than in years past, where it was, we would have that day after the midterms, and it was kind of run up to the front desk and the teacher would sign off on what they thought or put a check mark on what they thought the student should do. And then where it helped us was that instead of then having the paper copies turned into the counseling center for verification with the counselors, then to the clerical support, which then had to, they then had to input the course requests. We had those course requests once the counselors verified them that day. I mean, they were live. Then we could post on, and not really post, they were live, so the parents had their course request verifications. So then the parents had more opportunity to work with the counselors in terms of, is that the right fit? As of today, there are 17,161 course requests for the schedule next year. And I've said this before, what makes Bethlehem awesome is also why I have no hair, in that we build our schedule based on what students want. We don't just roll over last year's schedule and what teachers teach and say, this is what you're going to take, students, enjoy. And so it really is, it's a lengthier process, and it's a far more labor intensive because we have to come up with a schedule and match up faculty and working with our supervisors and faculty, and they're tremendous through this, to get the students the courses that they want. This year there are 311 courses available, and there are 5 new courses that are running this year. But, and we talked a little bit about this before, the other thing though, there are courses that are running this year because we can actually staff them. And that goes to the tech. And I would like to say that I will say our target, again, And I brought Mrs. Cullen up because she and our administrative deans have been doing a lot of labor this first time around with Aspen to make this work. And the nice thing is that once we get it done this first year, we won't have to reinvent that, but that transition this year, we're building it from scratch. The former process was really long. As I said, first we had to rely on the paper, then we had to input that, and then we would put where we thought it would work, and then we would load the students, and then we'd go, that didn't work, and we'd have to start all over. This new process with Aspen, with all the lead-in work that has been done, we're going to be able to create a schedule where now we have more control over it. And so once we load the students, we can make modifications and maybe not have 5 sections of Global 10, because there's always that one that only has 10 students left over, and we can move that staffing somewhere else so that we can accommodate more students. And we're really confident that we're going to be in a much better place. And in terms of the numbers to back that up, Aspen has, it's almost like those fundraisers, you know, the thermometers next to the ambulances and whatnot. We are at 98% readiness. The first time when we thought, hey, look how good we are, and it came out to 80%. But Aspen has been phenomenal, and working with them, and their representative is going to come out in early May to walk us through that last part, but we are literally ready to, I mean, if push came to shove, I know, and there's Sal, I'm gonna, you know, whether he wants to hear this or not, but he's been great with this, is that we could run a schedule tomorrow with Bruce, Heather, and myself working, but we're at that point that now we just have to bring Aspen in, and they're going to be able to walk us through so that we can throw all kinds of different schedules out there to see if we can't hit that 92 to 94% of those 17,000 requests being honored. And that's the scheduling process in a nutshell.
Question?
Scott, I know that, will this allow you to tell the students what their schedules are earlier than you have in the past?
We're still going to go with the course verification will still be, we still have that same date, because this being the first year with Aspen, we don't want to make any promises. My guess that we will have a better sense of whether or not we can move that up a bit, but I think that next year we'll be able to do it sooner.
And when is that date?
June, very early June, so that students will leave knowing what they have next year, not their teachers and not what time the classes are, but they will know what courses they're taking.
Great.
Scott, so prior to kind of this new scheduling system using Aspen, what percentage of that 17,000 were you able to?
In the 11 years that I've done this, we have never been below 90%.
Okay,
And most schools are usually around 85.
okay. So this gets us closer to the 100.
I think it gets us
We've always been pretty good.
And there, I will guarantee you, we will never get 100%, but I think we will be able to move that number up. And the other nice thing is, keep in mind, last year, that was with 60 students not being able to get into the tech courses that they wanted to because we just couldn't offer them. But we still count them as their unfulfilled requests.
Right.
Scott, moving the scheduling process a couple months earlier has certainly helped budgetarily wise, as well as prepping for the end of the year.
Yeah, yes.
Have we done the initial run to see what percentage we're at right now? I know you do a lot of tweaks, or no?
No, because we aren't really sure what Aspen, we're at that 98%, and before we actually hit load, we want to make sure by doing that we don't blow something up. So, but we will
First
be,
time for everything.
yeah, we will be able to be running numbers very soon.
Plus, it always, always is contingent on the budget, too.
Well, that's the
It's
other
hard to-
thing, it doesn't make
hard
any
to commit
sense.
to anything at this point until we have
No,
a
but
passed
sometimes they do
budget.
the initial run before the May 1st. Last year you did it in April, I believe, the initial run.
And I will say this, that was with a system that I knew. And so I knew I could do anything and not break it. I feel like I'm driving Dad's Oldsmobile out, and I don't want to break it yet.
I will just add a suggestion. For me, both personally and from, these were mostly ninth grade parents, the part that was newest to us and therefore created more difficulty was the verification. Because I know that I was still waiting for the paper form, and I know that some parents were telling me, we figured out where the schedule was on Aspen, but other parents are telling me, I'm pushing all these buttons, I don't know where it is. And the time was, the clock was ticking down very quickly. So that would be just something, I don't know if it's, I think a lot of it would be parent education, but for those of us who are ninth grade parents, it did cause some confusion on what we were expected to do. So I realized it was the first time through, but I think on the parent end, now that we've been through it, we know what to look for, but that would be a place that I would,
And I think that that is definitely, I'll say it, I think when we lost the supervisor position with the counselors, we lost a lot of that transition work that could take place 6/12 to communicate that. And I want to be very clear that that's on the high school end. I will not speak, because I know Mike's in the back. It's not a middle school thing either, and it's not a high school thing. We have to do a better job of that consistent message from 6 through 12. Because I'll be honest, yeah, it's easy to assume every ninth grader knows how to do this. Well, that's not the case, and that's on me. But I also think I have to work, Mike and I have to work more closely with our counselors so that 6 through 12, we're all saying the same thing. Because even at the high school, I have 7 counselors, and you're going to get 7 different variations. So your point is directed right at the high school as well. And we are working on that.
right. I think the kids may have known what to do. I think fewer
Absolutely.
of the parents did, just because we
Yep.
were used to one system.
Absolutely.
I think that's true. That's different.
Yeah.
Anyone else for Scott?
You have
Thank-
one other piece, I think?
I do. So I'm going to introduce Clara, and I know some of you, because you saw her with Sydney cycling sauce, but I invited Clara to speak because I don't know how to say this. She is a remarkable individual, and she's only been with us for 2 years, which you may say, well, then why are you going to have her speak? Because shouldn't we have someone who has been in Bethlehem K through 12? But when we were at the Chamber of Commerce Awards, I was talking with her mom and dad, and she said that I was no longer allowed to sit next to her father because we were having way too much fun making fun of Clara, I think. He was telling the story of why they moved to Bethlehem. And I expected that it would be from the father's perspective, and it is not. And I think Clara is going to talk about why this high school is as good as it is, and it's just based on her perspective. And she's going to tell you why she picked Bethlehem. So without any further ado, and she's a much better speaker than I am too. So go ahead, Clara.
Good evening, everybody. As Mr. Landry was saying, my family moved to Bethlehem last year. I was a junior in high school, and during the moving process, my parents were very considerate. They told me, this is hard on you, we understand that. We're going to let you choose which school you want to go to, because this is your junior and senior year, and you should have the choice of where you want to finish out your years here. And so I went on Google and I looked up Capital Region high schools, and I looked at the whole list that came up, and it was months of comparing high schools and checking them off the list of, okay, I don't want that one, I don't want that one. I looked at Albany High School. I said, no, not so much, not for me, thank you. And I looked at South Colony. I looked at a whole bunch of different high schools, and in the end, it came down to Bethlehem and Shaker. And I was torn between them. I didn't know which one I wanted to go to. And finally, in the end, I just said, look at Bethlehem's schedules. Look at what they have. I could take AP Art History here. I could take metalworking. I could take 1,000 different classes that I've never seen before in my entire life. And why would I not want to go to a school that encourages that kind of differentiated learning? And so I chose Bethlehem, and I'm so glad that I did. I think my education would not have been even close to the same thing had I chosen a different school district to go to, because Bethlehem really encourages students to explore their own interests and really make something of themselves. They have to do their own work here, but the school provides them opportunities to learn things that they might not otherwise. So a student can learn metalworking, and they can learn how to make pasta sauce in the cafeteria kitchens, and that's available for them, and they can do that. And that's just so impressive to me, coming from a very small rural high school with a graduating class of 80 students, to come here and find a better home here than I ever had in that tiny high school, to see a high school that's so huge and yet finds a place for every student to do what they want to do. And that's, I think, the most impressive thing to me about Bethlehem, is that they really find a place for every student here. And I am so, so very glad. I'll reiterate, I'm so glad that I chose to come here. Can I have an eagle pin?
Yes. You beat us to it.
They're getting a name for themselves.
They're on eBay.
I would just say, Clara, you did a great job speaking there, and we're very glad you're here, and tell anybody else about it they ever see. We always like to have more and more students.
Well, it's fun. I've been doing the new student tours since I was a new student. I decided I wanted to show other students who are new to the district why Bethlehem is great. And so on the first day when they all come in, they have like the puppy eyes and they're terrified. And I remember being like that. So I want to tell them, hey, look at all the classes you can take. Look at all the things you can do here. And that's I think really important to show all the students, the ones that are incoming and the ones that have been here since kindergarten, that they know that they can have those opportunities.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Claire? Where did you move from?
I moved from Saranac, New York. It's a little north of Plattsburgh, a tiny little town.
So you're much warmer down here, too.
Much longer.
And your plans for next year?
I'll be going to Oregon State University for food science, so another big move in my future, but I'm really looking forward to it. And the counseling staff here has been amazing with helping me with college stuff. They went out of their way above and beyond to do what they had to do to help me out and really make sure that I got the best out of my college experience.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
No, I just
Joanne.
wanted to say, because we didn't really highlight the sauce, which is really another one of your great achievements. We had the privilege of getting to enjoy your sauce for dinner, which I was one of the few that had seconds, so thank you. But I just want to commend you. That was terrific. You know, we're the Board of Education, so we love hearing that. But I think one of the things that really struck me was the fact that you had a wonderful experience when you were coming in as a junior, and that really speaks volumes, and that was a really tough transition. I'm sure you obviously handled it flawlessly and have not only just had a great experience, but you clearly have become one of the leaders of the school. And again, I bought 2 jars. I can't wait to share this with my family, but really, really powerful stuff, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to the presentation of the 2015-16 budget and board discussion.
Thank you, President Downey. Assisting me tonight is our Chief Business Financial Officer, Ms. Kehoe, as well. And we're going to present to you the proposed budget for budget adoption this evening for the 2015-16 school year. Tonight's agenda is we're going to review the final totals, and Ms. Kehoe will take you through that. In addition, then we'll move on to some of our reductions, capital outlay, the recap of the propositions, as well as some of our future meetings in this budget cycle and annual election cycle. So to start off with the review of the final totals, I'll turn it over to Ms. Kehoe.
This slide is unchanged from our last recap. It does reflect the total of $94,162,000. That is the 0.45% maximum allowable tax levy, adding $287,000 to the levy. State aid up by $2.2 million, thanks to a favorable set of aid figures ultimately from the state. And that zero is a lovely thing on the revenue side, because that means that in this proposed budget, we are not using any of our fund balance, which is just phenomenal progress. As we noted, we are ahead of where we thought we would be with our multi-year financial plan, and that's largely a reflection of these resources finally starting to flow back to us, and we eagerly await next year's budget and hope to see the remainder of the $2 million in gap elimination adjustment.
Judy, I know since I've been on the board, we've always used fund balance. How long has it been since there's been a budget proposed that has not used fund balance? Do you know?
It's been many years. It's been probably 8 or 9 years, if not more.
Yeah,
I'd have to
say
go back and
yeah.
look into the
Okay.
archives for that, but
And actually,
Great
if we
achievement.
go way back, there was a time when we asked to actually have a fund balance because we really didn't have one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, this is going way back, so.
But I also think in those years, the tax rates were much higher.
Right.
So,
And that was to keep probably the tax rate even where it was. So it wouldn't be
Right.
higher.
yeah. Speaking of taxes and tax rates, I have done a very early estimate. These numbers will absolutely change. I will not have final figures from the town of Bethlehem or the town of New Scotland until the end of July, as we're gearing up for the August meeting where we adopt the tax rates. But based on their tentative numbers and then making a few assumptions about where they will land, although we're going to see 0.45% more in revenues, the actual tax rate for most people will feel closer to half that, right around 0.21%. Bethlehem is still working on adding some commercial properties to the rolls. If the rolls go up, that means there are more people sharing in the taxes, so that rate is likely to drop even below that. So as I get updated figures over the coming months, I will certainly be happy to share good news if that improves, as I expect, but to be below 0.5%, closer to 0.25% is a really good year. $11 in an increase for a $250,000 home.
Do we know if we're the lowest in the region in our budget?
Under the Council of Superintendents for the Capital Region, we are not the lowest in the region. We're certainly not the highest any longer either. The high in the region, I think, is North Colony, potentially at about 2.8, 2.9. Guilderland will be about 2.6, 2.7, right in there. There are a couple districts going out at 0. And like Niskayuna is going out at 0. But they are also using fund balance so that they can, and they've been through some strife over the past couple budget cycles. There are a couple districts that have to be negative, or else they have to have a supermajority because of the tax levy calculation, sort of what happened in the very first year. So I think there's roughly 2 or 3 that are at 0. There's like 2 that are negative, and I believe we're probably right there next at 0.45. So we're very low compared to everyone else.
On our fund balance, again, we are projecting that we will have a surplus this year of about $1 million. That's going to raise us from the $9.8 million where we ended up this year up to $10.8 million. We should be able to bring the undesignated portion of our fund balance closer to the 4% maximum that is allowed by law. Potentially, if the capital reserve is approved by the community, we can put about $500,000 into that reserve so that we'll have a partial funding source for the next capital project that comes along. I did want to add a note as a follow-up to our last meeting. You had a question on the amount of the tax certiorieries and where are we with that?
Right.
If everything that is pending currently in the town of Bethlehem is settled at exactly what the people who are requesting reductions have asked for, basically 100% of what they've asked for, we would have to pay about $739,000. So that's very, very unlikely for everybody to get exactly what they requested through that process. It's usually considerably below that amount. We do have 500,000 in the tax certiorari reserve, so I would advise that we are well within a reasonable range for that limit based on those settlements.
Plus, we have undesignated fund balance available to us now for those emergency situations that could or should arise unexpectedly throughout the year.
But we're in great shape. When I had the rating call earlier this week with Standard & Poor's, it went very well, and they were very pleased to see the progress that we've had in improving our overall financial position. So that'll be my next piece of news, is where did we land with that rating as we go out to market on this advance refunding of the earlier 2007 bonds. Taking the direction that you had given us at the last meeting, we went through and applied all of the changes that we had talked about over the many months of the budget development process, and we have put that into the final budget that is presented to you tonight for adoption. And we are at a 1.66% overall increase and very nominal increase in our salaries. It's basically the additional positions that had been recommended to be partially restored back from whence they had come, and then any other contractual increases per the contracts that are in place. Fringe benefits, another one of those rare moments, almost as rare as zero fund balance and less than 0.5% in taxes, is the benefits have gone down, and that is largely because of the reduction in our pension rates, 4% on the TRS, which applies to almost 30 million of our salary costs, which was a tremendous savings to us, and also low rate of increase on our health insurance premiums this year as well, and that makes up about half of the benefits total. So another piece of good news. All of the other services have been adjusted. BOCES went down slightly. That's primarily because there was a large piece of equipment that was included in the 14-15 numbers, and that has come out of the BOCES line next year and is part of the increase that you see for the equipment, supplies, and contractual. The capital outlay of $100,000, which will also be part of this budget, is included in the $350,000 under the last line of that. So very, very positive overall. Keep going? Or? Okay.
And of course, as the numbers have been presented, we also have to discuss what was reduced from this year's current budget that would no longer be in next year's budget or the proposed budget. And through our presentations, these three items were the major discussion points that were reduced. And that was the middle school ELA, social studies, and science position of 0.6, which is part of the half-team structure at the middle school, as well as the high school world's language due to numbers of 0.2 FTEs here at the high school. And as you heard from our athletic department, through consultation and because of concerns of numbers and potential safety issues, the elimination of the freshman football program for about $68,000. In our budget presentation last week, we also identified numerous others to make sure our spending plan was brought into the line of the numbers that were just presented, with reductions in fringe benefits as well as breakage for staffing reductions, as well as health insurance savings, additional savings on our TRS calculation that we started with that helped the overall budget picture. But also we had significant additions, and the summary of those final additions are in this presentation, where we had to do a slight trimming of the additions that were originally proposed in the amount of about, I believe, $375,000 to make sure all of our numbers came out at the numbers that we just presented. So the additions that are included in this budget are elementary staffing 3.0, elementary specials 0.6, lab school 0.8, math computer science 0.2, staffing for response to intervention, 4.6. Technology and STEM at the high school, 1.0. Physical education, 0.2. And also, as you can see from these slides, it also shows the rationale of why these were even proposed in the first place. Social studies of 0.8, middle school world language of 0.2, middle school health 1, middle school physical education 1. In addition, we restored transportation and safety meetings that were formerly cut out in past budget processes. We are also looking at trying to move towards, as best possible, our ENL regulations for the coming year with an ESL interpreter to address additional needs. We're exploring an IB program development and training as we move through this year to make sure that we have the funds if it's the option of the district and the board to move forward. However, if it is determined that it's not, those funds would be able to be diverted. Special education, we are also trying to create funding for unanticipated increases because we do not necessarily always meet the budget at the end of the year, depending on the populace nature of moving into the district or out of the district, and we want to make sure that we're fiscally healthy. We are also addressing a unified sports program, which is a federal requirement and also picked up in Section 2. We're adding art at the high school, 0.2, and we're looking at some athletic facility fee program reinstatements for athletics. In addition, 0.7 in English here at the high school to meet scheduling needs, 0.6 for guidance to provide non-mandated counseling services as well. And then special education is more of a grant shift for tech support where we are currently funding it under the grant and we really need to cover it under our general fund. We are looking at the technology readiness, which is a 3 to 5 year program to get ready for any type of online assessments, as well as online educational resources that we can utilize the monetary nature for in the next couple of years until the state finalizes all of its online assessments. And then additional uniform supplies and equipment to fund the items that have been currently being funded by outside sources at the district. In addition, our special ed legal fees, we want to make sure that we're where we should be in our budgeting to have proper allocated resources for the needs of the special education department. And then also some updated repairs to the dispatch office and the transportation. And one of the things that has been short-staffed over the several years have been the O&M staffing with one custodian and one groundskeeper's position to try to maintain the level of expected cleanliness and upkeep for the new fields and grounds, as well as what has been deteriorated over the course of the recession. And then you had, at the bottom of our priorities list was turf management program and some O&M equipment to also address the fields, as well as transportation technology equipment to assist at the safety meetings and transportation. And then we also split apart the tech readiness piece that was talked about earlier. And if you notice, that's down $120,000 because that was one of the reductions to bring this budget into line. An assistant director for the musical, the garden club, chef club to be restored, and they've been ongoing clubs here at the high school and middle school that have really needed financial support, and people have been donating their service and time, but they've been very popular. We are also looking to bump, as we restored some field trip monies last year, an additional $3 per student in field trips, and then a transportation plow truck to replace the existing unit, and then a human resource position to start addressing some of our staffing needs in the district. In order to meet that, a couple things that are missing is a literacy coach that was just above the human resource position for about $71,000. There was about $120,000 cut out of the tech readiness. I think, what else? I'm missing one. I know there was $30,000 additional reductions in the BOCES line, and
Something with the buses.
and the bus telemetry was cut out, which was right there at the same area. So where we made the reductions ended up in 375, and this is what we talked about at the last budget meeting. And we brought this back to the board. So at this point, that would be the budget that's out there. With the budget also comes a capital outlay plan that's built into the budget. And as we've talked about, that's the 2015-16 high school pool phase 3, which is $100,000 in the budget, and it would be transferred to the capital fund. And this is for additional equipment replacement, more interior finishing upgrades, and this fund would be eligible for roughly $68,000 in building aid once it's approved, completed, and goes through state ed. And then, just so that you know, in the budget, there will be a couple propositions. I'm going to let our Chief Election Officer, Ms. Kehoe, also go through that and then address the final meetings, and then we can have a discussion on the final budget presentation.
Of course, the budget, that's the main event for the district as proposed. We will have 2 3-year Board of Education seats. Just this morning, any petitions were due, and any candidates had their place on the ballot drawn by Brittany Barrett as district clerk. And the order that the candidates will appear on the ballot, we will have Dr. Charmaine Widgesinger as the first place on the ballot, Lynn Lenhart, number 2, and Jonathan Fishbein as number 3. Those will be the 3 candidates running for school board for 2 seats. We also will have the bus purchase proposition. This is to replace buses that are really at the very end of their useful life. That will be for 10 buses, not to exceed $1,027,000. And then the authority to establish a capital reserve will also be on the ballot, in addition to the propositions for the library. The library has, I believe, 5 candidates running for 2 6 candidates, I'm sorry, running for 2 seats. So the library will put that information out for everybody.
Last year, I think they had write-ins.
They had write-ins. I'm glad they don't have write-ins, so,
Someone was elected like with 5 write-ins.
Write-ins are always the hardest part of the election.
with the old machines anyway. The capital reserve, again, this is new. It allows us to take any surpluses with board approval and to transfer that into this reserve. And then we can use that as a funding source to allow us to reduce the amount of debt. This was also something that was appealing on the rating call that I had with Standard & Poor's. So if the community does support this, I think this really positions us to be in a stronger place in the future. Okay. So next up, now that we're through all of the meetings talking about the various program areas, we will have our Meet the Candidates night right here at the high school in the cafeteria on May 5th. And then the hearing is the night after on May 6th. And then, of course, the budget vote itself on May 19th from 7 a.m., not 6. We always have people charging the gates early every year, 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. here at the high school in the gymnasiums.
So questions?
Yeah, well, do you want to go, Lynn, first? I was just going to say that the board has received numerous inquiries about the literacy coach position, so I think we'd like to have a discussion about that and maybe refer to Jody in terms of the understanding behind that, elimination of that position.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah. I
So
guess,
when
yeah,
we talked
yeah.
about it in the initial budget presentation back in March, obviously the classroom instruction was the priority in the presentation. And last, in the overall scheme of the budget, if you remember, that was lower on the priority list because we've lost so many classroom teachers at all levels. The elementary will be gaining almost actually over 8 full-time teachers next year, which I think is a huge plus moving forward. So I think that was the discussion we had had in prior meetings about where that position stood. Certainly, we will continue to look at that in the future, but in regards to priorities, the classroom teachers was certainly myself as well as the administrators' recommendation in order of priority.
And can I ask, given that there has been a literacy coach in place for 2, has it been 2 years?
There's a
Part-time, right,
part-time.
for 2 years. I assume that there's some materials and programs that have been left or that are available to teachers to use because of that,
Yeah,
that position.
And you feel the additional staffing will suffice in terms of that, because on the other side of it, there's professional development that would,
well,
Partner.
we always have professional development. There won't be someone in the classroom working with the teachers like we've had, but certainly we don't stop not having professional development. Those things would continue, whether it be pull-out models or push-in models.
isn't nice to have, sure, but in regards to the overall priorities, the classroom instruction, the intervention specialists are more of a need at this time. Like I said, I think it's important for us to consider that moving forward, that how do we continue to support? We used to have, for example, we had Gail Sobolewski, who was retired, who came in for a number of years and did some math support with teachers when we were transitioning to the Common Core as well, which was very helpful. So, I think we need to look at, we're going to have new social studies standards coming in, new science standards. So it's ongoing what the needs are within the district. We used to have a K-5 supervisor that was cut several years ago in the budget. So there's a lot of different things I think we need to continue to look at, but the classroom teachers are, but for me, a priority to reduce those class sizes, particularly this year at the primary level. Moving forward, those numbers look very good.
What do we have now as far as literacy coach?
Well,
We don't-
0.4 at the
0.4?
elementary, that's it.
And then what about, like, I know last year, I mean, what I thought was great with the sabbaticals, when, especially the technology coach.
That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Sabbatical.
Is there a possibility of doing some of those
That's
again?
what Sal, and we've talked about that through the budget process, the tech coach, there's, some teachers would say there's a need for some math support. How do we address all of those things for
Well,
the
I think
teachers?
And those, to me, like, for the professional development, having somebody come right in and modeling
Right.
is like probably the best, I think, for any teacher. I mean, you could go to all these conferences, but unless you're hands-on doing it.
Right, within the classroom and working alongside is definitely a great model, for sure.
I think for me, one of the compelling things about the letters that we received was, there was a strong ask for professional development in the way of coaching, which is a great model. And I appreciate your comments as a teacher, sometimes that's kind of the most effective or one of the most effective ways to foster and use that professional development. And, I would love for us to look at the technology coach idea again.
Something
as we
that's
do this.
ongoing and sustained.
Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. It's better than a workshop or a
Yeah.
one-shot.
I guess my question
conference.
is, when the literacy coach was initially sort of on the list as a priority, the assumption was that going from a .4 to a full-time coaching position, that we had the need for that in the district, that there was certainly enough folks that were sort of looking for that. I mean, would you still?
Absolutely. But when you look at it in the entire list for the district,
Right,
it doesn't,
it's-
it did not come above classroom instruction.
No, I understand
Yeah.
that, and I
But
agree with
absolutely.
your priorities. I
Right.
mean, I think the classroom instruction and, all that we've kind of backfilled there is great. It's just,
Right.
I know, you can't have everything, but, that's also really important. And if,
Sure.
there's a way we can finagle it or think creatively. I love the idea of like sabbaticals that kind of offer professional development, yet it's a win-win for the district later.
In our
We might wanna think about
sabbatical
that.
that we
That's
just
how the literacy
awarded
coach became
is,
about, right?
is,
Wasn't
that's how the literacy coach came about, but the sabbatical we're just awarding now is in the area of art, where
Right.
the art teacher's going to be working with high school teachers to bring back that idea at the elementary level. So it's a similar model to, the models we've had for the tech and the
Yeah.
literacy coach.
Yeah.
If we're out at .46 right now. Is that
.45.
.45?
Can't be 4.6, that's a supermajority.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the Mattel.
So you couldn't just go up to the
No.
.4? Okay, all right.
It's low, but
Yeah.
it's Mattel.
It's Mattel, yeah.
Well, but
Yes,
then we would always have to,
15.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I like the concept of a literacy coach and a technology coach. I think it'd be very helpful to the district to have those opportunities for the teachers. But at the same time, this is the first year that we're seeing additional funds in our budget, so I want to be a little more conservative, and we're adding 5 RTI teachers. So I'd like to see how that works out for the year and then reassess maybe next year, but I definitely think that in the future we have a need for something along those lines.
I would agree with Christine that I think it would be great if we could include it in this year, but I understand the priorities that we have. And I would just ask that for next year, we give serious consideration to seeing if we can get that back into the budget.
Sure. Yeah, or agree, and also just say, keep a close eye on it, report back to us mid-year, tell us how it's going, what the needs are, where the gaps are, and then we go from there. So,
And the
Because-
tech coach we've talked about would not just be elementary. There's
No,
a need for
there's
that.
all over.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that concept. When the two people came in with the sabbaticals, with the tech and the literacy coach, I just thought that was like a total win-win.
Right.
And if there's a way that we can put more in that, instead of, individual students being pulled out or whatever for the RTI, I mean, it just seems like with the coaches would just help classrooms.
And probably could use math coaches.
And that too, especially the whole,
There's already a list being started for next year.
Yeah.
But also, here's the dilemma, if we start because the district, I missed the last meeting, I did watch the tape, the district developed a budget based on the discussion. If we're gonna start adding stuff back in, I'd be talking about that tech readiness, because I don't like that cut. So I'm willing to go with the budget you presented and the additions you presented, with the instruction that I want to make sure we're not going to fall so far behind on that tech readiness for testing, that within 2 or 3 years, we're suddenly needing to budget incredible amounts of money to catch up.
I would say, just in response to that, I think we're ahead of the game when it comes to most districts, just because we started 2 years ago, even though we've made cuts back to that fall in line with the budget, we are way ahead of, I believe, other areas in doing so. What it means is we've now funded in this roughly 2 years, when we are looking at $800 to $1 million that we would need for potential online assessment. And that's not the 5% of the budget that state had said we would need, but we feel with our bonding and so forth, that's probably a comfortable amount until we see anything more. So as we're building until they're ready, we're at least building and having those options available to us.
Yeah, and I think the state needs to do its part in ensuring that all districts have broadband.
Right.
I mean, there's still a lot of districts in the state that are dial-up, impossible to do that type of assessment. So I don't know how it could become a mandate from state ed to do the assessments online until all districts are taken care of that
And
way.
I think one of our worries, Lynn, is too, just like you said, dial-up and online, is we're about to go into math testing tomorrow. Imagine if all math testing is online, and now we have a lightning storm. What is, see? I can see people sitting there going, what do I do now? I mean, those things haven't been clearly delineated yet, and how to deal with those things, because if we deal with that with regions testing, remember, you only get one shot if something shuts down. Are the kids penalized for it? So I think there's a lot of guidance and guidelines that has to be there. My job is, and the board's job is to make sure we're ready for it. We're being proactive instead of reactive.
Sure. Sorry,
Again, on the literacy coach, if there's even some way to even do it on an even smaller scale, there seems to be some teachers that are really, benefited from the literacy coach, that maybe once a month, hire a sub or something. If there's some way we can work out some sort of continuation for the teachers that want to participate in it, maybe do
We could
multiple
always
teachers,
look at the
something.
professional development
Right,
opportunities
yeah.
for that, and the coaches that are out there as well as in-house.
and even with the RTI, I mean, I don't know if there's ways to even, I don't know the word I want to use for it, but like seeing what the numbers are like and doing a shift. I mean, I don't know if that's a possibility next year.
I don't
Like if the
think
numbers
we'll-
are-
Yeah.
Jody, if
Well, I
I'm-
think
I don't think, if I'm wrong, we'll see too much of a shift in
No,
that.
those numbers are based on the
Not they'll
last
go up.
couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the literacy coach, do we have, right now, I mean, clearly there's a cadre of folks that feel like they're connected into this and use it. What about the rest of the people who aren't using it? Is it a time issue, or they just aren't, they don't like that model, or?
Well, I think there's definitely a time issue currently when the Val's position's only .4 currently, so how much time can she really devote to, or
Right.
even during the sabbatical? There's also, if you're coaching and it's ongoing, you can't just go in once, and there's some follow-up
Right.
required. And there's always going to be people who feel a little threatened by that or resistant to that, just because it's, another person in their classroom that maybe they're not used to. So there's some of those that you have to kind of get past with coaching, and not just in any kind of coaching. So I would say there's probably combinations of all of those things that, we have the tech coach, people who are really, could feel they don't know a lot about technology, may also feel threatened by having someone in who's very knowledgeable about that. So, yeah, it runs the gamut, I would say. There's never enough time.
Right.
Anyone else? Okay.
So is the board ready to proceed onto the agenda item? You don't have to do that right now, but
Yeah.
we're all set with the proposed budget.
Anyone else want to add anything to the discussion?
Judy would have to do some quick figuring.
I would have liked to seen it put in, but
Me too. But I
Right.
think
Like, I
if we
don't-
can
there's
work
not a
something out to, again, as, once a month or something that we would hire, there's money in the budget for subs.
Yeah.
To bring in a sub so that, we'd be able to go and do whatever, or however often we could work out something that would be beneficial to
Sure,
the staff that, are eager to have that coaching.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, and I understand there's certain categories of spending and so forth, but it is a $93 million budget. There are pockets of
We have some
professional.
additional options now in this budget,
Right.
more so than the district's probably had in a long time.
Right, I'm sure you do.
just make sure we put it for priority for next year then.
We'll start the list.
And the evaluation of how, number one, additional staffing is
Right.
working at the elementary level, then number two, how especially for the RTI program, how that's working too.
Absolutely.
Certainly, by mid-year or something, just,
Yep,
certainly before the budget process.
yep. We already had a meeting about it today, how that will look.
And we can schedule it, we're starting to set the board calendar up for next year. We can place that on there as one of the presentations.
All right, moving on. At this time, the board has set this time aside for visitors who would like to address the board on an agenda item. Who would like to address the board? Hi. If you come up, state your name, because we're being videographed and videotaped, and there's a
You can take it
microphone
right
there. You can
out.
pull it right out.
Take it right out?
Yeah,
It's always easier.
yeah.
My name is Valerie Falco, and I'm here to speak about the literacy coach. I'm not speaking because I'm the literacy coach. I'm speaking because I've worked in Bethlehem for over 20 years. And throughout that time, we've had various people to support us, but the literacy coach has been the most successful. It's the most successful because even teachers who are hesitant come in and use the literacy coach. I had a teacher who was terrified to have a group of teachers in a room, and once a month, every fourth grade teacher is in her room. So I'm thrilled that you put 3 classroom teachers in, and that's going to make a big impact. But I'd like to argue that the literacy coach position, whether I'm in it or anyone's in it, has a greater impact than our 4.6 RTI specialists. Because the first line of intervention is Tier 1, and that's the classroom teacher. And the classroom teachers are all being supported by a literacy coach. When you ask why people aren't using it, because it's 0.4. I have more requests every week than I can possibly meet. And I do the best I can. I think that we were all surprised last week when it wasn't a top priority, because if you go to almost any teacher and you would ask them, what do you want? They would say, please put the literacy coach back in. It's been very successful. I think teachers cared a lot about it. Every teacher in our district is now using the writing program. It's something that we consistently use. We have consistent language. And last year, the first year that we used those, our scores went up. We're looking at new reading units. I know teachers are very interested, but they've come to me and said, what kind of support will we have? Well, they'll have none. The reality is once a month, a workshop here and there does not do the ongoing support when teachers are going to take big new initiatives. Common Core is hard. Teachers are getting beat up, but the literacy coach is the person. I don't evaluate them. We work together and we collaborate. So I'm speaking for the teachers. I'm like the Lorax who spoke for the trees, that the teachers really value the literacy coach, and it's someone who makes a direct impact on every student every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Anyone else like to address the board?
write one of the letters. My name is Grace Bennett. I'm a third grade teacher at Glenmont. I've worked with Val on and off for many years. I heard you say she works with individual teachers, but it spreads out through everybody because we talk to each other. So when somebody's in working with Val, they come back, they talk about things, we share ideas. So she doesn't have to be in your classroom, or a literacy coach doesn't have to be in your classroom, but we all get the support from that. You don't get it from going to a workshop once a week. You get, once a year you go, you get exciting things, you go back to your classroom. It doesn't work the way you thought it was going to work in the workshop. You try it, a coach comes in and helps you. So there's just so many things to talk. RTI is focusing on one small piece of the population. A literacy coach is everybody. She works, the literacy coach, I'm sorry, I keep saying she, but the literacy coach works with that population too. Also works with our high kids. What do we do with those kids who have these amazing skills, but we've got all these other kids to work with? A coach helps us with all of that.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, any further discussion from the board or anything based on those comments? Okay. Moving on, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items A through D.
So moved.
The first, second, any discussion? I would just like to say thank you to the two entities for making those donations. We have a very generous community that is always helping us out here. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those items carry. Moving on, it is recommended, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items E through F.
So moved.
Second.
It's the first, second. Any discussion? I would just note that that is the budget and then the required property tax report card for the 2015-16 school year. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those items carry. Item number 9, professional personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following instructional staff action items A through J.
Second.
First and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item carries. Item number 10, support personnel. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following support staff action item A.
So moved.
Second.
That's the first and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That item carries. Item number 11, correspondence for action. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following correspondence action items A through B. We need to do item A.
So moved.
Yeah.
Second.
That's the first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Does anybody have any questions on the administrative budget?
No.
I didn't hear what you said.
Okay.
Any questions about the
The
administrative?
administrative budget, both.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Item A carries. Now, 11B, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following correspondence action item B.
So moved.
Okay. First and second, any discussion?
Way to go,
Well, you
Lynn.
have to.
We have to do it separately because we have to vote for 3 candidates. There's 4 candidates. Okay, so let me call those separately. BOCES board member election. It is recommended the Board of Education vote on items 1 through 4 separately to elect 3 candidates for the ballot for the board members of the Capital Region BOCES. All voting for candidate 1, which is Jeffrey Brandt from Cohoes City School District.
You need a separate motion?
Yeah, can I have a motion?
I'll move that. But let me also explain a little bit the fact that on the BOCES represents 4 different counties, Capital Region BOCES, and there are representatives from each of the counties, and there's a general persons agreement that there would be 4 from Albany County, 3 from Schenectady, 2 from Schoharie, and 2 from Saratoga. Saratoga really is just Shenandoah within the BOCES, and then Burn Hills, which covers both Schenectady and Saratoga counties. So the election is really for 2 people from Albany County and 1 person from Schenectady County, under that general person's agreement. This really, it's been important because an area like Schoharie County probably might end up not having any representation if we didn't do that. So this is a way of having the representation being somewhat equalized from all the populations.
So what does that have to do with that? I mean, so tell me,
So basically, we're looking at selecting 2 people from Albany County and 1 person from Schenectady County who happen to be up this year. Other
Okay.
years, it would be the Schoharie people of it.
Right.
And there's
So
2
Ms.
and
Deanna,
2.
Schenectady-
yeah, I was gonna say, so.
One and three
who
are-
is who?
1 and 3 are Albany County, and
Right,
So that's
2 and
right.
4 are Schenectady
Yeah,
County.
right.
Right.
Okay.
So we want 2 Albany,
You should be voting for 2 representatives from Albany and 1 from Schenectady
Who
County.
is 1 and 3, right?
so 1 and 3
May
are the
I-
only Albany
May I
ones?
advise the
No,
board
no.
just a little bit, just because a statement was made? The board has the ability to vote for any of the 4.
Right.
You are not obligated to vote for any position. However, there was an agreement that has been in place. I'd be very careful as a board saying we have to vote for these 2 or this 1. It is the board's decision.
Right, but I did say it was a general person.
Right, it's a
Yes.
right.
Okay.
So historically, there would be two seats available based on that agreement in Albany this time, and then 1 in Schenectady.
Yes.
However, there's 4 candidates running, 2 are from Albany County and 2 from Schenectady County. We can choose to vote for whoever out of those 4 we want. We have to select 3 candidates.
Right. So let's not vote for Lynn. No.
No.
But if we go by
do
the
the other
general, it
three.
would be 2 Albany, 1 Schenectady.
Right.
Right.
Is
Right.
kind of what the
Right.
general
Right.
has been. Thank you.
Okay, so can I have a motion for nomination of candidate 1?
So moved.
Second.
First and second, all in favor of candidate 1?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstention? That's 7 votes for candidate 1. Can I have a motion for candidate 2?
So moved.
Second.
That's the first and second, all in favor of candidate 2?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's, any opposed?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be opposed.
Opposed, okay. So that's, that candidate goes down. Can I have a motion for candidate 3?
So moved.
That's the first and second. All in favor? Silence. No. Aye, everybody. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, candidate 3, 7-0. And then candidate 4. Can I have a motion for candidate 4?
Second.
First and second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
2. Okay, so that was 5-2.
No, 6-1. I just said yeah.
You can't vote for 4 candidates. You can only, there's only 3
Well,
seats up.
Well, I think this is.
There's only 3 seats available. You can't vote for 4 people.
So she's a no vote for Barb.
You know how I am with numbers. I've already lost track of them.
This is always one of the hardest
Well, it
challenges.
helps when you
We're only
have
allowed
to-
3 votes each.
At the
Okay,
BOCES
get it.
meeting,
I get it
We
now.
don't have the
Need
limited
Just
members.
because I think the other candidate lost, so I could vote for this person.
No,
Vis-
you're only allowed
I
3
needed a bit of
votes.
visual. Okay, there was no visual.
So I think that
Again.
ended up being
All right.
5-2, right? Okay, good. All right, so candidate 4. So the board, majority of the board votes were for 1, 3, and 4.
So Bethlehem's vote will be for 1, 3, and 4.
Right.
Which Brittany, as district clerk, will communicate. Our approval rating is tomorrow.
Who knew it'd be so
Next time we
hard?
need a chart.
Those gentlemen agreements always get us in trouble, you know?
The meeting is closed.
Okay, now the board would recognize anyone in the audience who would like to address the board on a non-agenda item. All right, no? Okay, being none. Future meetings, Tuesday, May 5th is the Meet the Candidates Night here at the high school in the cafeteria. I think it'll be in the same format as previously, where people will be able to submit questions to be asked of each of the candidates. There'll be time limits on how long their answers are and whatnot, but that begins at 6:30 PM on Tuesday, May 5th. Then we have a regular board meeting on Wednesday, May 6th, 6 PM executive session with a 7 PM public meeting. And then the annual vote is Tuesday, May 19th. The polls, as Judy had said, are open from 7 AM to 9 PM.
Please, everybody come out and vote. And then the next board meeting after that is the next day, Wednesday, May 20th. Again, 6 PM executive session with anticipated 7 PM regular board meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
First and second, all in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Voting for someone, like 3 people want.
Here's my pen.